got my head out the sunroof. I'm blasting our favorite tunes. I only got one thing on my mind. You got me stuck on the thought of you. You're making me feel brand new. You're more than a sunshine in my eyes. I'm feeling like this might be my time to shine with you, with you, with you. I got my head out the sunroof. I'm blasting our favorite tunes.
Hi, welcome to In the Middle and Out of the Box, episode 13. Today's episode is actually going to be quite different. I actually had a resident come in of Delray that works in Boca come in and do an interview because I want to hear from the people. I want to hear what's going on and the frustrations and the good things and the bad things. And I think this individual is a really good person to have as an interview because she lives in Delray. She's lived in all over Florida, down in Miami, up in Boynton, and now Delray. But she actually works in Boca and is very familiar with Boca and Boca City and so forth. So I thought, what a great idea, because that's what this podcast is all about, is understanding that other communities, other cities, and so forth can be offering everybody something and not looked upon as they don't want to be like somebody else. They want to be like themselves, great, but whatever positive attributes they might be able to offer to other cities amongst themselves is a positive thing, and we should be trying to embrace that. So the interview person I have today, guest, is Ingrid Lee, and she's of Delray. And like I mentioned, she works in Boca. And so I want you to sit back and relax. And we had quite an interview, and we covered a lot of territory and went over a lot of things. So, and then at the end, I'll come in and I'll give you a quick couple of little science and technology and a couple art pieces. And that will be our show today. So I hope you enjoy this new setup. And again, nice change of pace, and enjoy the interview. Welcome to In the Middle and Out of the Box, episode 13, lucky 13. Today we have Ingrid Lee, a resident of Delray Beach. She's also the admin and coordinator of Delray Matters group in Delray. So I thought this would be a wonderful opportunity to have you here. You're also a friend of mine. And we also co-admin for a while on Delray Matters. And I just thought it was really important to have you here because I think it's very interesting to have a perspective of somebody that, lives in Delray Beach, but maybe works in Boca, and is accustomed to being able to see different cities and what they offer and strengths and weaknesses. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So what are some of the things that you'd like to talk about today as far as the cities and...
Oh boy, I always have a lot to talk about the cities, but just to touch on your point you just made, I first moved here about 20 something years ago, 22 now, and lived just outside of Delray across Military and had our first child there. And then we had another child up in Boynton. And I grew up in Miami. So South Florida is my home. And so I've seen Miami, Fort Lauderdale. I've seen this whole area a lot. And I was really attracted to Delray Beach even before I lived adjacent and worked in Delray. So I think one of the things I want to say to that is whether you live in Delray or you live near it or you work in Delray or own a business, I think that everybody has their own, opinions and things that they want to share about that. And that should always be encouraged because even before I was living in Delray, I was kind of falling in love with Delray. And I think that we should be open to that love and attention, and we shouldn't shut people out because they live in Highland Beach or they live in Boca or they live in Boynton. And I think that that's something that has always kind of gone on social media, at least, where people kind of poo-poo opinions that aren't people who live here or can vote in Delray. So I love this podcast because it's kind of bringing up how we all are kind of interconnected and adjacent neighbors. And if you guys have a great idea in Highland Beach or Boca's doing something right, I'm all for stealing and using, what do they say, flattery? Stealing is flattery, something like that.
Yeah, it's the best form of flattery. I mean, I think that's kind of what the whole idea behind this podcast was, both cities or all three cities all have strengths and weaknesses. And even Miami and things like that, when we talked about like the affordable housing and how well they're doing it, and 32,000 units and things like that, I mean, why not use them as a template? Why recreate the wheel? Why, and it's not just about, where you are in your little fiefdom and, so it's kind of important to really kind of take in what's happening around you and what other cities are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so now as far as Delray is concerned, I know you've lived there a long time, and what are some of the things that you see as far as maybe, that I know they recently came out with an app, right?
Yes, they came out with a Delray app. I was very excited. I think you were with me when we met with the city manager and we met with the IT director and the communications director for the city of Delray, and they mentioned that this was coming out and they were going to be doing this newsletter, and so I was very excited to see a lot more attempts at making the city a little bit more accessible and sharing more information about what's going on, a little bit more transparency. And so I was very excited to see that the app come out. And so January 1st, I went out and I started using it and saw a couple of problems with the reporting portion of it. And I did reach out to a couple of leadership in the city, and they were like, yep, okay, sounds good. We're working on it. And it's just been very kind of slow and sluggish, but I think that's kind of what happens sometimes with government. It's not like an immediate fix. So I think they're going in the right direction. I just think that there's definitely some tweaks that need to be had.
Yeah, you mentioned about a pipe that burst or something.
Before the app, there was a pipe that burst, fresh water, good clean drinking water from what I could smell. It smelled like it was good water. That had burst in our neighborhood near our nature trail, and it created like a sinkhole, and the water just flowed and flowed and flowed all weekend. I called, my HOA board member called, other people in the neighborhood called the emergency utilities phone number, and finally somebody came and shut it off. But I mean, I can't tell you how many gallons and gallons of fresh water went down the drain, essentially, because they just couldn't be reached. It was just very not responsive.
I know that when we met with, the city manager and the communications director, they had met, well, I had actually also brought it up to the communications director by myself originally about getting an app originally, and she had mentioned that was out of the question because they were, they looked at the cost of hiring a third-party vendor. Oh, mm-hmm. And I said, well, why would we need a third-party vendor? Why wouldn't we hire somebody just on staff, as that's their sole responsibility? And she said they hadn't really thought about that they were looking really more towards a third-party vendor to kind of handle these issues.
I don't know what they ended up doing.
Yeah.
I don't know how they got the app done.
And when we met with, the city manager, I mean, I know that I had said to him that a lot of the corporations that I've worked for, they had one central desk, kind of like the, go-to desk, even for the employees that, if you had any kinds of issues, whether it was a payroll issue,
they were like the problem solver.
They were like, that was the hot desk that you go to. And I said, if you have one source and you hire one staff member or two staff members, whatever you need, and that's their only responsibility, and to manage this app and, all the issues and problems, I said, but the key, I don't know if you remember if I said the key is they have to be able to bypass all the bureaucracy and be able to go to the department heads themselves and make sure these things are taken care of and done, because otherwise it's just like anything else. It's going to have to go through all the, and, but it, I, based on some of the comments that we've been seeing, it just seems like there's a lot of still issues. And again, it's not about, it's about it's not about blaming. It's about trying to figure out where the issues are so they can be fixed,
Yeah, I think that for me as a resident, my most important thing is that we are heard and that issues get addressed, because I think that we all pay taxes, and we love our town, and if we see an issue, we expect it to be handled. And same thing if we have services that we need, or we want to use the park, we want to have a clean park with good bathrooms. And, you see the complaints online, what people are concerned about. And I think that the city should both be super responsive and proactive, that they should stay on top of a lot of these things so that there isn't, long maintenance issues that were not addressed.
Right. Well, we even joked when we were doing, and when I was one of the admins with you, and we joked about even like just putting a picture of like a puppy, even for because even with the residents, it seemed like massive amounts of comments and support would be whenever there was a dog lost, or but like when the important issues like, desalinization plant and, all the other things that are
Seawalls.
seawalls and, flooding and all that stuff, lifting the lift stations and so forth. I mean, there's just so many issues and, it just doesn't seem like, I don't know. What do you
So
think
I
about
think that yes, everybody loves a cute puppy. And then I think people like to complain.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily looking for a solution, because if they were looking for a solution, they would probably go the route of calling people directly and addressing it. So sometimes they just want to be heard that they're upset about something.
Just
And you'll
venting.
get these huge, hundreds of comments on the dog or, the complaining. But there's, when there's actually something that can be done, that there's like an action that you could do. You could call in your comment, or you could email your commissioners, or you could show up at a meeting, or you could whatever. When there's some issue that you can actually do something about, people seem disinterested.
Mhm.
And I think, there was a poem, I don't remember the details of the poem because I don't memorize things very well, but it was basically like, the world has enough problems. You have enough problems. You don't have enough time for the world's problems. I wish I could remember it. Something about mirth was in it. But anyway, I think that, people have their problems at home and with work, and they don't want to tackle these bigger problems with the city because it's one more thing, so they'd rather learn about the Kardashians or find out about a restaurant or
Right,
something like
right.
that. And so part of the reason that I started Delray Matters is I wanted, I saw a lot of Delray groups, and I love community building. So I think that those groups are wonderful. And they're great for finding a plumber or your favorite Thai restaurant or the best bakery, which is right up the street, in my opinion. But they didn't really share a lot of, hey, this is what's going on in the planning and zoning,
Mhm.
meeting.
Meetings, yeah.
Or, hey, did you know we have a public art board, and what are some of the pieces of art that are going to be put up around town, and what do you think about that? Or, there's really not a lot of information about what was happening. So I said, okay, well, we have enough of these groups. Let me start this group where I can just make it a lot more accessible, because I wish that the city would do that on their own social media and put it out there in the local groups more,
Mhm.
instead of just posting on the city's page, post all over the internet about, hey, here's the upcoming agenda. Just real brief, like,
Sure.
point A,
Yeah, the
B,
meeting
C,
details.
with links
Mhm.
on how to get to the meeting. Or, hey, we're having a municipal election coming up. The city is hosting a forum, or, whatever. So that there's like an official, neutral source of information. Because a lot of these groups, when they do engage in sort of these civic issues or the city issues, it's very slanted.
Mhm.
They all have their agendas or opinions. They wear that all over their sleeve, like, hey, this is my thoughts on this. And I think that the city should be, not me, not Delray Matters, the city should be putting out there, like, here's the facts. Here's what's happening. Here's what the concerns are. Here's how you get involved. And I almost feel like there's intentional blocks to that, like the city purposely doesn't put the information out. I don't want to sound conspiracy theorist, but I just feel like they don't make it open, accessible, and transparent as much as they could.
Mhm.
And people feel it. People know that they're kind of getting blocked when they ask for a public records request, or there's an issue that they want to be heard on, and maybe the meeting is at 6:00 and 4:00 instead of 6:00, and they can't call in a comment. There's easy ways to open doors and make things accessible, and I think the city doesn't step into that space, and they should.
Mhm.
But I've argued that with the city many a time, and I don't think that it's a high priority, really.
Yeah, I mean, and let me take the, devil's advocate there for a minute, because I mean, I've been on the other side of that, as a vice mayor, and it's like, you do elect people to make decisions for the city,
100%.
And so, I mean, it does seem like a lot of these people that are, have always issues and complaining, question every single decision, and you can't do that. I mean, obviously you're electing people. They have to be competent. They have to be able to make decisions. Well, I know, but we hope so. And so, I mean, but you can't run basically a city if every single decision
No.
goes out to, public for vote or
100%.
charrettes or, I mean, that's just not feasible. So, but like, I mean, even like you said, though, I mean, there are simple things like maybe changing the time of the meeting. And yes, the meetings are long, but whether the meetings are long and they start at 4 or they start at 6, I mean, the meeting's going to still be the same amount of time, right? So roughly. So, as long as you can get maybe more people there, if you do start a little bit later, I get it. I mean, there's been many times I've been sitting in a 5-hour, 6-hour meeting too. That's your job, right? So I always notice at the end of these meetings, or, even in Boca too, everybody's trying to run out the door, and I get it. Everybody's tired, everybody's had enough,
They're
but it's
hungry.
like, yeah, they're hungry, and a lot of times you can take a recess, and that's what we used to do, is we used to take like 5-10 minute recess in between if it was really a long meeting. But I mean, that is your job, right? So it shouldn't be rushed. It should be given the time it should, and it should be as accessible, like you said. Why not start at 6? Or I think you mentioned something about the dog beach too, right? Was another hot topic item.
Oh, no, I was just saying that there's some decisions that they've made, right? They
Mhm.
make a decision about the time of the meeting, or they make a decision about whether we should have a dog beach or not. And they don't really want to revisit that decision. Like, we've already spent a lot of time, hours, talking about these things or deciding something, and they don't want to really revisit that. And that's fine. But if it's not working out, then I think there still needs to be tweaks, right? Like, okay, I made my decision, but
Right.
so if 6 o'clock is really rough, like 6 o'clock is what we want, and 4 o'clock is a really rough time for people to feel like they can come and be heard.
Yeah, after work. or
Why
whatever.
don't we just let people call in like we used to?
Right, and leave a message.
And leave a message, and or keep encouraging people to email that one email that can go out to all the commissioners. It's, I think, mayors at commission. I don't know it off the top of my head, but there's one email address. So publish that, like put
Right.
it out there. Like, if you have a concern about this agenda item, email your commissioners with this one email address, or call in a public comment before this time on this date, which we were allowed to do back during COVID.
Well, there
And
are.
then they stopped.
Well, I know, and there are other cities that are still doing that. So, I
Right.
mean, I know a lot of times well, that's not legal anymore is thrown out, and that's not necessarily true. And so I think people know that, and so, the thing with the dog beach too, again, I get it. That's a decision, and I have a dog. I'm very pro dog. I love animals too. But, I think about honestly those people, because I know a lot of people are going north on the north side of the
Oh,
beach.
right, over by the sailboats.
And they're going north to the houses there. And, it's funny because I don't know if you remember the podcast where, you actually see that the deeded property goes to the high water mark, the high tide
Mhm.
line. And, I can imagine like those people spending millions of dollars, 20, $30 million on a house, and just having people, bringing their dogs in front of their house like constantly. And, so it's great to say, well, we just go north by the houses, but that's not really fair to those homeowners either.
Because you're essentially in their yard.
Yeah, you're basically in their yard. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'm not saying and nobody doesn't clean up after themselves or what do they do or
There
whatever.
may be issues, other
Right,
issues.
right.
Yeah.
But I
yeah.
mean, just the fact that you can't even sit out probably, after spending $30 million on a house, and sit out in your backyard, and look out at the beach, and you see people with dogs and, constantly. So I think people have to, like, it's not just about them. I think a lot of times people get just so, their own little, very egocentric, and they just think that this is only, well, I should have a dog, I should be able to go on the beach. And, again, I'm an animal lover. I love it too. But, there's rules for a reason, right?
I was going to say, but you're also probably a rule follower, and I'm more of a rule follower as well. And I think that what makes you a rule follower and or not is, I guess, that idea of privilege.
Mhm.
Some people feel like it just doesn't apply to me.
Right.
It doesn't apply to me. Oh, the speed limit? That's not for me. Or, I can't, it says no dogs, $200 fine. They're not going to check that. They're not enforcing that. They don't
Right.
mean me, not Fluffy,
Mine's so well behaved.
Oh, my dog would never.
Right.
My dog would never. I can't even tell you how many times I've been bit or peed on by a dog. I know that's probably R-rated or whatever, but it's happened. And I'm sure that those owners would have said, not my dog, but sometimes maybe I'm a little over affectionate or something, and dogs have had enough of me. Usually they're excited to see
Yeah.
me, but so not everybody. And there are people who have allergies, people who are afraid of them. Dogs leave excrement that sometimes aren't picked up. But yeah, I love seeing them playing in the water and digging
Yeah.
in the sand.
I think everybody does, but
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
reason.
but there's turtles. There's
Right.
there's
Oh,
things, there's
yeah.
reasons
Yeah.
why we don't necessarily want a dog digging all through the dunes and
Right.
things like that. So it not being policed and then people just doing what they want becomes an issue.
Right.
And I think the city picks its battles and it decides that that's not the battle that it wants to have. It doesn't want to chase people down with
Right.
Fido, and it doesn't want to make a dog beach and make it official and have a new rule. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those, they prioritize it really super low.
Yeah, as far as the
Yeah,
enforcement.
yeah, enforcement.
Yeah. So one of the other things that's going on in Delray right now is, the elections. Well, it's kind of going on everywhere, Boca, Delray, and Highland
But
Beach,
Boca
actually.
doesn't have any.
Oh, doesn't it? No?
Well, it has a referendum, I think,
Okay.
or an
Yeah, I
amendment
think
to
on the-
something,
on
but
the
it doesn't
ballot.
have anybody running.
Oh, that's right. To
Yeah,
expand the
they're-
term limits. Yeah,
They
yeah.
want to expand their term limits,
Yeah.
which I was like, wow.
I know.
That's something.
Well, Highland Beach tried that too.
And how did it go?
It didn't go well. It wasn't when I was there. It was after, but they tried to, they wanted to maintain, I guess, the group that they had.
Mhm.
And so, that's their way of trying to do that. But,
Longevity.
but the residents, didn't want that. And again, that's fine. That's what the referendum is for.
Right, to make that decision.
Yeah.
But in the case with Boca, I know we're supposed to talk about Delray, but in the case with Boca, they don't have anybody, like all the incumbents are staying in and nobody's running against them, which I always find sad. I think that everybody should be challenged to have that position. But because they don't, the only thing on the ballot is that. So if you get enough of, 20 of your friends, each commissioner gets 20 friends to show up and vote yes, nobody else is going to show up and vote no. Who's going to show up to, that's the only thing. I mean, like, you're going to take time out of your workday, your life to show up in a municipal election to vote on one item. That's
Yeah.
all that's on the ballot. So I think that it may pass. I mean, I'm curious to see what happens. I think
Yeah.
it may pass because if they just get, 40 people to vote yes, then they're good.
Right.
But Delray's got that bond on the
The
election.
mysterious
on the
bond
ballot.
that we can't get specifics on.
I think it's been the worst published, the worst marketing or whatever for it. I mean, they basically just said, go bond, and we want to do public safety and parks. But like I mentioned online, if I go into McDonald's, I'm not going to just hand them $20 and they give me food. Like, I
Right.
want to know what I'm getting.
Right.
Specifically, which stations are you redoing? Where are they? Why are you doing that? What parks are you going to be improving on? How are you improving on them? Because maybe I care about the police getting a new station, maybe I don't, but you need to make me care about why this is important, why we need to do it now. And I think that the city has not done that. It's just been like, go bond, yay. And
Well, and a
that's
lot
it.
of also the mail-in ballots have already been,
I sent mine in already.
yeah. So, I mean, I think, again, this should have already been done like months ago.
As soon as it was a glimmer in their
Right,
eye, they
right.
should have been out there spreading information about it, and they didn't.
And this is
And they
one of
don't. Now
this-
they're having a charrette or something,
I
town
think
hall,
so, yeah.
something.
I mean, this is one of the things, though, I did talk to one of the commissioners about, and I said, why is the form of communication consistently like this?
Like behind.
It's like withholding, it's always withholding,
Yeah.
It should be presenting. It should be, I said, because in order to get support and confidence and trust in your residents, you have to, the more information you give them, the better, because
I agree.
they understand what's going on.
Mhm.
But it always seems to be the reverse. It's like we're going to keep it tight to our, and it's just really doing a disservice to them, because I think actually a lot of them, the commission actually thinks that a lot of it, I think some of them think that it might be not in favor. They might not get the actual bond because, and I sit here and I say, well, why would that have happened? I mean, hopefully it does still pass, but I'm just saying, because the information was never really, and again, it's not about, well, we have the final say, we kind of can like use it where we feel we need it. I mean, that's great, but I think people are looking for much more specifics. And if that has to change because let's say something else is found to be maybe more needy at the time, I think people would understand that, but at least what is the original intention of it,
Right. What are you really asking for? And this, we've talked about so many times about the city always being behind the eight ball and then allowing narratives to just flourish. And I think that happened with Old School Square. That happened with probably waste management. We could probably talk about that. I mean, the
boy.
Highland Beach mess with the fire department and stuff. So there's so many background narratives that, people who are paying attention see it, and then they kind of present their idea of how it happened or what's going on social media or in emails or whatever.
Filling
And the
in the
city's
pieces
just
that are
kind of like,
missing themselves,
I'm
right?
not going to say anything. And
Right.
I was like, well, you guys should get ahead of these things.
Mhm.
You know, these are big ticket items or big issues or things that most residents care about, and you don't, right? And so I think it just really boils down to, I would love to see the city a lot more proactive and communicative and accessible. And I say that over and over and over and over again. And because they're not, that's why Delray Matters exists, because I get so frustrated by the lack that there is, that I
Mhm.
try to create this platform where, facts can be shared, information can be shared about nonprofits in the city and what's going on, and people can share their opinions civilly.
Yeah, I mean, that was
Because
always
otherwise, where do you find this information
Yeah.
now? And how can you stay informed?
But I think that's one of the things that I've always said too, is that, yes, obviously there's a difference in appearance between Boca and Delray. Delray has height restrictions. Obviously, Boca has, much higher.
Obviously, Boca doesn't.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
Just thinking of that huge thing on Federal.
Yeah. I mean, again, but that's their prerogative, how they
Sure.
want their city to look. But as far as if you want to, I understand the whole Village of the Sea idea, and that's fine. You can keep that in your architecture, the
sure.
look, the buildings, but you have to start acting like a real city. You've got to get processes in place and behave like a real city. And one of
It's
the
the 21st century.
I know.
It's the 21st century.
And-
Like, we should be like moving and grooving and
Well, one of the
fixing and-
things I never understood, and I know I always talked about it a lot, was, the maintenance, right? The parks and recs, and also the maintenance. It's like, why
city
is
buildings.
why is everything always like
Had to
a
give a look on that one.
crisis, a fire? Everything then is directed to that. Everything is, this is, this drain I remember it was a couple of years ago. The drain by the beach was all backed up and it was,
I remember
corroded
that.
and the
Yeah,
algae was
yeah.
on it. It was they couldn't drain properly and people were calling in and, so the next day they're out there, doing or whatever.
Right. Or they complained about the trash cans recently. And then they
Yeah.
were right there out there cleaning the trash can. But it shouldn't be on
Right.
social media that you're not doing your job
Right.
for you to then go do your job,
Right.
And I think that's, I was telling you, not just Delray.
Oh, no.
There's
yeah.
every city has that same issue about
Mhm.
being proactive and on top of maintenance.
Well, why
You
not
shouldn't just,
everything
and let buildings fall apart, floors fall out in buildings. And,
you said
the
even with the
Legion, the American
historical
Legion,
society too.
so the Legion just went, to waste,
Yeah.
but there's so many things where it's like, they let the pavilions rust and they let the bathrooms,
The benches by the marina, right? I mean,
but everything,
Yeah.
like you have people in these parks daily, right? You have maintenance crews and street people, public works, and like, I'm not blaming any particular department,
Right,
but I'm
right.
saying, it's like a house except for bigger. And if in my house I see that there's like, a crack or there's a paint that is missing or whatever, you go and you zhuzh it up a little, you see it every day, people. So
Well,
it
that
shouldn't
was-
really take Allison having to call me and say, by the way, the bench is falling apart.
it's rusted. And
It's
yeah.
rusted and the seat's on the ground. Like, really? You needed a citizen to notice that?
Well, this goes back to what I was saying about how you have to start acting like a real city. And like, I always said, why is this not done on a rotational basis? I mean,
Oh,
every
right, yeah,
single
maintenance.
piece of property in that city, a bench, a sidewalk, or whatever, should be looked at least once a year. I mean, by the staff.
Quarterly.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying, like, you have to
With the
make
frequency,
sure,
yeah.
that is a rotational maintenance. And so that you are seeing those things. And when you see something that's taken care of, so the next time you come around and it's in the rotation, that it's not the same situation, it's still there. And, and I think they just recently, somebody told me on the commission that they just recently started now a rotational maintenance schedule, which again, like, how many years ago should have this been put in place? So it just seems like, it's very, you got to start acting. You are a big city, you have to start acting that way. You can still do your little village by the sea, like as far as your look, and I get all that.
Feel.
Yeah. But,
And the village by the sea is what attracted me, right? Like, I
Mhm.
grew up in Miami, suburbs of Miami. I don't know. And I grew up around Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, not that Hollywood's, but anyway. But when I came up to Palm Beach County, first off, I loved that there was a ton less traffic, But, I started hearing about Delray. And the thing that attracted me most about Delray was that you had people who had been in Delray for generations.
Yeah.
The history
Yeah.
is what got me really interested in Delray. And I think really sets Delray apart
Mhm.
from most of South Florida.
Mhm.
In Miami, all of my friends' parents came from somewhere else.
Mhm.
My father was Caribbean. My mother was from New England. My best friends down the street were Puerto Rican parents and Jamaican parents over there. And, like Haitian, like nobody was from Miami. I mean, we were all born there,
Mhm.
but our families had come from somewhere else. And so coming to a city where you are sitting next to someone whose parents came or great grandparents were here in 1909 and helped found the city. I mean, to me, that was just like, wow, in Florida, to have that longevity. And so that really attracted me to Delray, and that I could like bump into the city manager doing his dry cleaning or in the grocery store.
Right.
or
It has more of a community
It
feel
feels
too.
like a
Yeah.
small town. It really
Right.
does. And it does feel like a community. And the history is what got me interested in the Historical Society.
Mhm.
And involved with them. And I think that they're really going to start branching out and doing, so much more about the whole city and maybe start getting into like the things that went on during the civil rights movements in
Mhm.
Delray. And, there's history that is right in front of you in
Mhm.
Delray that people don't know.
Yeah.
They don't realize that it's there. But I'm on a tangent. But my point was that small town feel, the history of Delray is what makes us charming and unique. And we can't lose that.
Mhm.
Anybody can be Boynton or Boca,
Mhm.
but Delray is really super special.
Yeah, and when I did my podcast, even just comparing Boca and Delray as far as historic districts and basically homes that were still left and so forth. I mean, it was just amazing to me. It was like night and day. I mean, basically, there's really not much left in Boca, and that's why it's so important to pass these historical districts because you want to keep that history. And
Which is on
that's
the slate soon,
yes,
the downtown
yes.
historic area.
And, so that's why I started doing these podcasts because I thought it was really important to showcase a lot of this stuff and, even like the desalinization plant and, all these things that are coming up and so important. And, it goes back to what we had talked about, though. A lot of people say, I guess what's different about my podcast is it's not just me sitting there, complaining and whining.
Although I think I complained most of this whole video. This is what they're doing wrong,
No. I'm talking about like on an ongoing
No, but
basis.
you do come up with solutions. And I hope you add to this video solutions of like,
Yes.
how we can get people more engaged and, how cities can communicate more
Mhm.
effectively and be more on top of things for their residents.
Yeah. So like I said, I do try to provide solutions and, so we just have to get people to start watching more and hopefully taking the time to be interested. But now as far as what I had originally asked about was the races and the election.
Oh, election. Yes, I forgot.
So I know that you've, really done a great job of monitoring Delray Matters because I know it's a very difficult job of trying to keep be fair and, objective, but also giving everybody their fair time and monitoring their speech, just making sure they're not, calling out other people as far as names and so forth. And so, I know you put out those videos, so what would,
Yeah.
what's your thought on, the
hard fail? That was a failure.
Well, it wasn't a hard fail. I think people got to see kind of, how, a little bit more about them if they haven't heard them speak and so forth. But it just seems to me like we've got to come up with a better way to do this as far
100%.
as, elections. I think one of the things is, nobody really wants to take the time. I'm not saying you, I'm just saying in general. What did they vote for? What did they pass? And going
The important
back through
stuff.
all of this, couple of, years of what their voting records have been. And because, where do they stand on this? Where do they, where do they agree? Where do they not agree? Because I think what happens is it winds up just being a popularity contest. And,
Right.
well, this is my friend or this isn't my
Or
friend
you have
circle.
a pet topic
Right.
that person says they care about.
Right.
And so then I like that person because they care about my pet topic. But it's like, okay, but this is the job.
Right.
And this is how they did their job. And even folks that, there's a couple candidates or actually I think just one candidate who hasn't been on the commission. But okay, well, what has this person been doing? Right? Like, did they just show up and say, I want to be president? Or something like that? Or what what have they been involved in the community? But I just feel like there's not a
venue or a vehicle.
There's not a vehicle for really getting to know this person
Mhm.
and who they're connected with and what they're really about and what they really think and feel. You get these trite, like, I'm going to be more communicative, or I'm going to care about neighborhoods, and I'm
Right.
going to listen, and I'm going to be civil. And it's like,
Just
okay, that's great. But,
generalizations,
I want to know
specifically.
like, what's your vision
Right.
for Delray? Like, do you want us to have 20-story buildings? Do you want every plot of land to be filled? Do what's important to you about Delray? And you really never hear that. And I don't know the best way. I thought, I'm going to ask them these great questions,
Yeah.
and they're going to come out with these very in-depth, heartfelt feeling, responses.
Well, that's because you and I would do that,
Yeah, nerdy. But they didn't. I mean,
Well,
and two
just
didn't
like-
participate,
Yeah.
because they were too busy. And then the other two, they
It was
did
just like
beautiful
answers,
productions,
yeah.
but they weren't.
Well, they weren't specific. I mean, when you asked them specifically, what are you going to spearhead?
Yeah. What do you care about?
Right. What is it that you're going to do?
Specifically.
Right.
I'm going to pave something. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
But it was just all generalizations again.
Right. And I don't know how you can really nail people on giving you a deep answer. I think debates sometimes end up being a circus,
Oh my goodness.
well, Allison said this last time, and well, Ingrid's horrible because of that. And you're just like, oh my gosh, why am I sitting here? I don't think I went to one debate this time.
Well, I mean, I've been in a debate when I won my seat, and I honestly feel like, it's a good chance, I think, to meet people in person. They see how you
Yes.
talk, they see your mannerisms, they see your education level.
But it's really not even the real person, because they're
Yeah.
stressed and whatever up
Yes,
there. They're putting on
yes.
their show,
Yeah.
and it's not really who they are. And
Yeah.
I don't know how you get to really know who they are.
Well, I know when you were talking about the videos, I said you really would be good is if you could actually sit
Have a
down,
conversation,
and just
yeah.
with each one of them and just say, tell me like 5 things you're going to do when you get into office. What is it that, and I think you mentioned this in some of your posts that, it's not just about just showing up to the meetings. I mean,
No, it shouldn't be. It
Right.
shouldn't be, I just go there and I vote.
that's what it seems to be, though. It doesn't seem like anyone's really having a
Or if they
spearhead.
bring up something at the end of the meeting, commissioners can say
Mhm.
whatever they want at the end of the meeting. Sometimes they'll come up with a good idea, but maybe they can't get consensus, or they said, oh, we're going to put that in a workshop. But then I'm like, well, when is this workshop?
There's no
when is this actually
follow-up.
going to happen?
Right.
They're finally, actually, this Tuesday, they're going to be having a workshop on the architectural designs that are allowed in the Central Business District.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, you guys brought that up like 7 months ago, and you're
Yes.
finally going to workshop it. Like, I can't wait. What actually happens after that workshop? Are they going to change things? Are they going to just talk about
Well, I
it?
think what happened is this goes back to Facebook again, though, which really shouldn't be the vehicle
No.
that prompts change, right? So I think there was such outrage at Docs and the Art
Yes,
Deco,
Art Deco style.
and then also
All those
the
modern boxes.
Sunday Village corner building. A lot of people didn't like. Yeah.
I know, and that building,
I'm not saying I do or
wasn't
not.
historic.
Right. I know.
And then some people thought it was a monstrosity, but I like the
I
fun
know.
colors.
But that's,
and
again, everybody
shapes.
has a
Yeah,
different
they have their
opinion.
flavor.
But I'm just saying, I think so many people say, I don't like Art Deco, or I don't like this, or the concrete modern block,
Right. Mhm.
Everybody says that, or a lot of people say that. So, I mean, I think it's good that they're revisiting it, because I've always been saying on those posts, well, you guys need to revisit your architectural guidelines. If you don't like these styles, then why do you have a book of, 50 styles? Cull it down. I mean,
Right. I think there's maybe 10, and they explain each one, and
Right.
they have examples of each one. And I like the vernacular stuff, in case anybody wants my opinion. But like, there's a Florida vernacular and a whatever vernacular. Anyway, I think it needs to be revisited, but and I just don't know what they're going to do with it.
Right.
And I think that goes for a lot of things. And so it does feel like they're up there on the dais. They're maybe, kind of asking important questions on certain topics and voting, and they're doing a good job of that. I mean, I think they do get along relatively well on the dais as far as being professional or whatever. But off of it, there's one commissioner who never responds to emails, still gets reelected, shocks me every time, has watched basketball games during commission meetings, always is rushing everybody to get out, like, can you make this quick, and I'm like, you don't want to be here. but yet you are, and you're making votes and stuff. So, you know, in
And you
my
get-
mind,
and you
not
get
doing your job,
reelected.
and you get reelected, you're not doing your job. You don't show up at, community events and stuff. Well, then you have some that they do show up at different meetings, or they show up at community events, and that's what they should be doing, right? Like, you need to be out in the community, interacting, learning about things. And so I think the other four do that on different levels and in different parts of the city. They are quite involved. But aside from hobnobbing in the community, I want to see you show up at the table at the end of the day and say, let's do this. And I know Julie Casau had done that bucket pail thing for cleanup.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's cute. And that's good. And I have friends, actually one of my moderators and her daughter always go out and pick up trash when they go to the beach. And that's awesome. Not a huge problem. I mean, we bury our trash in Delray, so we don't really need someone to go pick it up. I mean, it's great to pick it up. I don't think we should be burying it, but
That's a whole nother.
it's a whole nother topic. But
And I go over that in one of my podcasts.
But my point is that, like, that's cool, but affordable housing is important. You know, that's cool, but
And do
we
you
got
know-
seawall issues. We got reclaimed water
Issues.
doohickeys that are supposed to be installed, along the reclaimed line that, we're kind of, if you look at the special magistrate agendas, you'll see that we're still going after people about, you need to put this in, you need to put this in. I mean, there's other priorities, there's
Mhm.
other important things. And, and I'm not attacking her as an individual, because at least she came up with something at the
Yeah.
end of the night.
But it just goes back to spearheading. I mean,
Yeah.
what else are you doing besides coming and voting?
Right. Or even like Boylston comes up with a lot of ideas, and some of them are great ideas, but where are these going? Like, where do they come to fruition?
Right.
And I'm sure that there's frustration about consensus and stuff like that. But I think we all have our ideal candidates. We never have ideal candidates run.
Well, I mean, that
And
brings
so-
that
but
brings up a
most
good
people don't.
point. Most people don't want to run at this point.
No,
because,
who would?
right. I mean,
You'd have to be
you have the
crazy.
really good people that would be excellent, not running. Because they get personally attacked. I mean,
Mhm. Oh, it's
just,
vicious.
I mean, just looking at it's vile. I mean,
It's very vile.
you're almost hurting not you, but I'm saying you're almost hurting yourself by doing that, because you're really preventing people from even wanting to run. That would be really good, because you're creating such an atmosphere. And it's not just Delray, obviously, but it's just, I think Delray takes it to another level.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we're not alone in the world.
No.
But I feel like, at least in our little area, like, it's not like that in Boca. I don't know that it's like that in Boynton. It's definitely, there's these, and maybe because we have this history and we have these deep-seated, people who really feel like, well, this is my town and this is what we need and this is what I want and this is where we should be going. And we're not. I heard rumor that there used to be people would come and sit at the table together and talk about it. And right before COVID, I tried to invite, like, people from all different areas to come to the table and sit down over at Rita's and have conversations and just talk about, like, what we love about the town and where we want to see it go and collaborate. And I planned it out. COVID happened, but besides COVID, before COVID happened, I started getting these messages. Oh, so-and-so's going to be there. Oh, if so-and-so's there, there's no way I'm going to show up. Oh, I'm out working with such and such. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, you guys can't get out of your own way. And I remember talking to one of the leaders of the SET community. We met up to chat. I had to jump through several hoops just to be allowed to talk to this person. And, I said to him, if you can't stand whatever person and this table is broken and it just needs the leg to be propped up or fixed, would you work with this person to just fix the leg on the table? Or would you rather just attack each other in the back of the room? And he was like, yeah, first off, I enjoy that kind of back and forth conversation, the fighting. And no, I'm not going to work with this person to fix the leg. And I'm like, well, then we're stuck here. We're stuck, because you're basically going to say, anybody associated with this person, I'm never going to really work with. And we all see there's a problem, but we're not going to fix the problem because of personalities.
Mhm.
And I was like, that's unfortunate, because you've got a wealth of knowledge. This other person has a wealth of knowledge. We could be collaborating and working on it, but there's such mistrust, and there's too much history between the individuals for them to kind of get out of each other's way. And they're honestly the problem.
Well,
These some of these movers and shakers in the community
Mhm.
on all of these different sides are the problem.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily the people up on the dais. It's all these background people who cause trouble.
Mhm.
They really do. And they don't see themselves as the problem. And that's huge.
Well, what I was saying though too is that what it does is it actually hurts the city
Oh,
because
it hurts the city big time.
now what you do is you're reducing the pool of people that are even willing to run. And again, they might not be the most right fit for the city or whatever, as far as their experience and whatever, because they don't want to be put up with the attacks and everything else. So I mean, I think you guys need definitely a different venue, a different way of meeting the candidates. You need people to actually take the time, go through the voting records, ask these specific questions as, where do you stand on this? Where do you stand on Old School Square? Where do you stand on whatever the hot topics are at the moment?
I mean, maybe they should even have like this. I can't go back to the city because I'm like, the city is neutrally, right? And so you have the clerk's office has the municipal election page that has each candidate and has their treasurer's reports and how they qualified. Host like a meet and greet one-on-one where like, okay, Allison's going to meet you at City Hall and talk to you one-on-one with questions, Q&A. Anybody can come, everybody's welcome, but it's a city-sponsored thing. It's not endorsing any candidate. All candidates get their day.
Mhm.
And then that it's a neutral
Mhm.
moderator. It's going to be a neutral venue. And everybody's going to be heard as an individual candidate.
Mhm.
And you can trust it. Having like this little minor group and that little minor group, and then going out to this nursing home and that 55 plus neighborhood, and then you're going to go over to the beach and have the Beach People's Association, whatever they're called. Like, how does any candidate function when you've got like 90 different specialty groups who want you to come out and shake their hand? It's like,
Yeah.
it's
It just seems very
insane.
inefficient.
It's inefficient, and it's
And and
it's-
after all of that,
and it's biased because now you're going to go over to the beach people and go, well, I really love seawalls, and we really need to be concerned about how the cost of replenishing sand or
Yeah.
whatever. They're going to just talk to the platform. But if you just have this random group of people show up at City Hall to meet the candidate, you don't know. You can't play a part. You have to just answer whatever is told to you. You can't just go pander.
Yeah, and I think
to
the
a group.
moderator is important too, because
Yes.
honestly, I think it needs to be somebody that's not in Delray,
Yeah.
because they have to
You
be
go pay somebody from Fort Lauderdale to come
whoever.
in. And,
Yeah, I mean, because it
pay
has to
50
be
bucks.
objective, you
Yeah.
know. And I think when you have even somebody that is as objective as possible in Delray, they still might have
All their
subconscious
own
biases
leanings,
or
yeah.
whatever. So
100%.
I think that's part of the problem is you need that individual objective person, and to just ask the questions and really kind of figure out what this candidate's about. And if their views and their positions on things don't meet what your background or what you're looking for is, regardless of if they're in your friend pool, I mean, then maybe you shouldn't be voting for them.
Oh, and I've said this before because I've had friends that ran for commission, and I said, you're my friend over here, and then here, you're my public servant.
Right.
And if I don't think that you're going to be the right public servant, you don't have my vote. I'll still be your friend.
Right.
And I think that that's lost on a lot of people.
Yes.
Why aren't you supporting so-and-so? Aren't you friends? And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm a friend and I support over here. But like when it comes to my vote, I take it very seriously and I try to be, as balanced and
Fair
I
as
scrutinize
possible.
everybody. I
Mhm.
scrutinize I don't care who you are. Like you could literally be my neighbor and I'd be like, well, last time you didn't take the trash back in. I don't know how responsible you are. I would totally, scrutinize even my neighbor. But I think going back to the city idea of having like the clerk sponsor a meet and greet
Mhm.
is if you did it in City Hall and they had a podium up front, it could be live cast, right? Where there was always this thing about, oh, well, Facebook, this one group is going to live stream this debate, but not that debate. And then, and I was like, that's so biased and that's so ridiculous that we have citizens scrambling to get the messages out, to get the debates out. It shouldn't be left to me to figure out how to live stream a debate. It should just be,
Well, not only
here's me,
that,
Allison. They have the podium up. They have the microphone. The camera's rolling, the same one that rolls on a Tuesday night. And they post the link on the city website, on the city clerk's page. and then anybody can share it and anybody can watch it.
I was
And
going to
that's how
say,
it should
it's
be.
one of the groups that was posting it, unfortunately, has blocked several people.
Mhm.
And so
So
therefore,
they couldn't watch
they
it.
couldn't even watch it.
Yeah.
And,
It shouldn't be like that.
I
It's
mean,
a public
right.
thing. It should be public. Any of these little meetings should be public
Yeah.
and made for people, because most people work. I was just saying to you, if they didn't have those signs that I can't stand on the side of the road, most people wouldn't even know there was an election.
Right.
I would say probably every other week my husband asks me, "Is it over yet?" And when is the vote? And has it, what's going on with the election? Like, he has no idea. And then he's even like, "Well, who do I vote for? I know you pay attention." Like, people don't have the time to do the digging, and you need to make it as easy as possible for them to just go to one place, to the city, hear the candidates, here's their meet and greet, watch the video, here's their treasurer's reports, all in one place. And so if you care to vote, which I wish more did, then you had one place that's a reliable, neutral source for you to get facts on this candidate,
Right.
and then move on. Even post up like, here's a link to all of this candidate's meetings.
Votes or whatever.
Yeah. This is how this can, because you have the minutes, city. You
Mhm.
guys have the minutes, so you could easily post like, these are, here's all the things, major votes that this person
Right.
made or whatever, or have links to the meetings that they were in or whatever. There could be more.
I was going to say, objectivity is so important. So, just getting back real quick to this podcast. I mean, no, I'm just saying that, the episodes that I've done are for Boca and Delray and Highland Beach. And they just are basically saying, here's an issue, here's a problem that you guys all have, whether it's traffic, whether it's your, intercity transportation. I know one of the candidates said, how would you handle, the continuing traffic and parking issues? And they're like, build more garages, build more lanes.
Oh, yes.
And that's the opposite of what we should be doing.
Right.
So again, like,
because our parking lots are already
you're just going to
sitting
bring
empty
more
right now.
cars in, so it's like, why, it just seems like the podcast. And then I have to tell you, I mean, the difference, honestly, that I've received between Boca and Delray, as far as the reception, even just of this podcast, where it's a very objective, it provides solutions, is phenomenal. Because I mean, Boca has embraced the podcast. They've made changes. They've implemented new things I've seen in the podcast. I've had the commissioner here. She was more than willing to, Boca commissioner. I mean, she was great, very receptive, very hospitable. I've gotten nothing from Delray. I mean, anytime I even say, listen, this desalinization plant is huge. It's 120 plus million. Have you watched this podcast? Because it's really important
Brings up
information.
important points, yeah.
Before the company comes and just says, oh no,
Sells you on their idea,
Yeah, sells
yeah.
you on the,
I got this great plant right here for you.
it's pulling from the wrong thing, but we won't talk about
we're
that.
good. We'll be good for 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is they have, I don't have time to watch it. I don't have time. And it's like, you know what? It's like,
You can prioritize and make time for anything.
I just noticed the difference, even going to Gumbo Limbo. Now, I just did the Gumbo Limbo
I know, I
edition.
need to watch that one.
Oh, it was fantastic, right? So, but I had also made arrangements with the Sandaway House because I wanted to make sure I did fair, because I always try to
Representation,
balance,
yep.
And it was made like a month ago, and I just got like the day before, we're canceling, I don't know when I'm going to be able to and I'm just like, I mean, it's such a fight. Like you were talking about, there's such a fight constantly to just get, and I'm like, I'm coming there to highlight you guys, and I'm coming to, to give you basically free advertising and, highlight what's for there's so many new residents.
There are a
and,
lot of new residents. Actually, we were talking about that at the Historical Society. Maybe you
Yeah,
can come visit
yeah.
us at the Historical Society. But we should have like a little porch party for new
I
residents and
think
show
that's a
them
great
like, this is the
idea.
history of your
Yeah.
town. And we may be doing that soon. So, but yeah, I think that,
But I wonder why there is that difference.
I think that, like I said, for all that we're a small town and charming and lovely and have generations and generations that live here, there is a lack of trust. There's, people push. I remember trying for years to help and be involved in a certain community in Delray I won't name. And won't name, but I'll look.
I could see that
You
look.
know who you are. And so much pushback, so much mistrust. And I get it, because there's a history to why people don't trust
Mhm.
newcomers and don't trust what your motives are.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people, since this is not PG, get screwed. People have been screwed in Delray.
Mhm.
And so they're very protective, and I get it and I understand it. It's hard to come in as somebody from the outside and try to help, regardless of the topic or community. A lot of times because of that history, because there's people who are just like, I trusted before and I saw where that ended. And so
Yeah,
I
mean,
think
I
that's
just
a large part of it in Delray.
I
I don't know
just
that that's a
think-
problem in Boca per se, but
Yeah.
I know that that's a problem
if
in
somebody
Delray.
comes up with an idea that maybe would save the town or the city.
But who are you with? Like who's
I know it's
is
amazing
somebody
not to have an
puppeting you?
agenda, but
You have to have an agenda, Allie. Are you making $1,000 million bazillion dollars on this
no,
podcast?
I'm actually doing this for free.
Right, for free. And so someone's doing something for free. It's a service. It's a mitzvah. I'm doing the Delray Matters
right.
for free on my spare time. But do you have an agenda? Are you trying to do something? Who are you aligned with?
Oh,
Are you aligned with this person or that person? Oh, I know you must be running. Oh, that must be why you're doing this. And it's just like so frustrating
It
and
is.
irritating because in your mind, you're just trying to provide information. You know something.
well, I
you
have a
can
lot of
help,
experience.
You have
I was a vice
experience,
mayor. I
Right.
have civic,
and you just
experience.
want to help.
Right. Well, what I'm
God forbid.
What I'm saying though is the difference in the even acceptability. It's not about being accepted. It's more about just listening to new ideas and actually taking them.
Yeah,
and
take them, even if they don't give you credit.
Right.
Like, so take the
who
idea.
cares?
Yeah,
Right?
share it. I always say that. I'm like, share it. Like, we'll talk about things being posted in Delray Matters, and you're like, oh, maybe people don't care. They didn't notice this or check that or whatever. And I'm like, look, I put out what I think people want to know.
Right.
They look, they don't look. I really don't care, what they look at or don't look at. But I did what I felt was important, which
Right.
is I put the info out there. I tried to let you know. And then if it sticks, it's like spaghetti in a pot. You throw it up. I mean, most people don't do that with their spaghetti, I hope. But, if it sticks,
Yeah.
it sticks. But a lot of stuff drops back down. And the important issue you brought up the other day about the flood zones. Nobody. It's like
Nobody.
crickets.
I know.
And I told my husband about it. He was like, what? And I was like, yeah,
It's like, guess what?
potentially we're going to have to get some
Yeah.
flood insurance.
Another
He's like,
$700.
and so I'm like
here.
zooming in on that map he sent me and like with magnifying glasses trying to see if
It was a
affected me.
huge increase of homes, over
Yeah.
6,000 homes in Palm
Nobody's
Beach.
talking about it. I mean, these are things that they may be a state issue or a federal issue or whatever, but they affect us
Right.
in Delray. And so it's really important that you share these things, but it's odd to me
Yes.
that the puppy dog gets but hey, you're going to end up having to shell out thousands more for
And
flood
flood
insurance that
insurance.
you may not really actually need.
Well, with that specific situation Palm Beach County's been fighting FEMA for 3-4 years now, and they lost the appeal.
Oops.
And yeah, so FEMA came out with these new flood maps years ago, 2019.
Mhm.
And, Palm Beach County's kind of been holding it back with the, fingers in the dam, and
Yeah. Oh no.
yeah, but at this point, the dam's
It's
open.
done.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you guys are going to, and again, like you said, nobody really
cares, pays attention to it.
desalinate. What about
Or the
affordable-
water, the affordable housing, the waste management contract. Boy, what a show that was! Like,
The workshop meeting
and you
was,
can say, "Did you see that?" And you tell people, "Oh my gosh, what an
you and I were like,
embarrassment
I've
this is."
never seen.
And not just privately, like publicly, I
Yes.
said, "Oh my gosh, like, did anybody watch this?" No, they didn't watch it. They're not paying attention to it. And again, I always use my husband as the barometer. He doesn't care. He doesn't pay attention about
Oh
any
my
of that
God.
stuff. He's like, did the water turn on? Good. The lights are on? Great. Like
and you
if
and
I were to say who's on the commission, my husband would be like, I think you mentioned, and he really
I
wouldn't
know.
know. And he's the norm.
right.
And I think that we get wrapped up in all this stuff and we're like, oh my gosh. Or even people who are surrounding these candidates, they're like, ooh, and they get all, but nobody.
Right, but the thing is, let's talk about the desalinization just quickly. So, you build this plant, it's pulling from the aquifer that's going to be dried up in 15 years. Let's just even give it 15 years.
Then what?
The life of the plant is going to be 50. Okay, then you're going to have people in 15 years clamoring. Why was this plant built? Why was it built this way?
And the people who built it are long gone.
They're long gone.
They don't
And
care.
it's like, well, this was brought to your attention, but nobody could even watch a podcast. Or whatever,
Google it.
Right. Yeah, Google it.
Whatever.
Right.
Wherever you want to get your information from is fine, but
Yeah.
do your research. And we were talking, I'd always talk about my ideal candidate. yeah, I want a nerd. I want someone who's going to go and research this
Mm.
stuff and talk to people, not assume they know everything, but go up there and be like, okay, I maybe don't know this. I need to go to experts. I need to go research this. I need to dig. And I know this is a part-time, low-paid job, being a commissioner, but it's so crucial and important. And so it's because of that so important for people who have, I said this earlier, a servant's heart, who is community oriented, who cares about the future of our town, not just what can I get when I'm sitting up here for my private business,
Or how many places can I go and show and
oh, how many
New
free donuts
restaurants
or
and yeah.
you know, cutting ribbons or whatever it is that
I
you know
know.
people love. I don't know why people run to be commissioned. I know why I would want them to run, but you know, I think some of it is, yeah, I like going to cut a ribbon and I like to be that person with my little name tag or whatever. I like to show up at parties and people know my face, like Cheers or whatever. But for me, yeah, I want a nerd. I want a nerd. I want a nerd at every level of government, you know, who cares? A caring nerd is what I would like.
Well, one
you
of the
know?
people said, one of the people on one of the boards, I'm not going to say who, you know, said to me, well, you know, why do you care? Why do you care, Allison? You know, why? I said, well, first of all, I have experience, I have knowledge, I've
Mhm.
been here, done it. I understand how the city works. I understand efficiencies. I was very successful in what I did when I was here and in Highland Beach and got things done that nobody else has ever done. And so I can do it. I have, you know, a lot of knowledge and I like looking for solutions and so forth. But I said the biggest thing is, you know, I in Highland Beach really don't have a town. Highland Beach doesn't have any commercial properties except one hotel that was grandfathered in, but we don't have stores, we don't have shopping, we
There's no
don't have
Main Street.
restaurants, we don't have, you know, there's no Main Street.
Yeah.
There's
So
no,
for you, it's
a
Meisner
bit-
and Boca,
right.
or it's Atlantic
It's
and
Boca
Del Rey.
and Del Rey.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly going to Boca and Del Rey. Those, we consider those our cities,
That's
those are
your
our
home.
towns,
Yeah.
right? And so
And even
like,
when I didn't live in Del Rey, I considered Del Rey home. You know, I was adjacent. You
and
know.
if someone has a better way of making something better so you guys can profit from that and they're doing it with no agenda behind it or, you know, whatever, why not? I mean, like, I just think that's so off-putting. Like, why do you care? You're like, it just seems like so odd to me.
Well,
You know?
and I think that goes back to, and it sounds like you're getting it from Del Rey. It goes back to this history of they're used to getting screwed. They're used to people coming in with an agenda who want something or da da da. But, you know, in your case, and I guess really you'd have to go back even before you were a commissioner, like, why did you even do that? And for me, I was raised by a civil servant. And that was my mother, and my father was in hospitality. So I was raised about, you know, manners and giving back to the community. That was pretty much it, you know, and so my whole life has been social work, Peace Corps volunteer. You know, now I'm working for a city. So for me, community is everything.
Yeah.
Community is so important. And, you know, we may care what goes on at the federal level or the state level, but what's going on in your neighborhood with your neighbors, and neighbors is kind of a relative term, like how far out you want to push that,
Right.
is super important. Like that's affecting my every single day. That's affecting my
Absolutely.
children,
Yeah.
my house, you know. So I think you'd be foolish not to care. Like, why don't you care? I'm often like, why don't people care? Why don't people show up at these municipal elections? I'll be at the Veterans Park Election Center on March 14th. So hope to see you there voting. But yeah, why don't people show up at these municipal elections? Why don't they show up to these meetings? You know, they after the fact complain about, oh, this didn't happen or this
Right.
happened or
Right. It's
why
just getting
why isn't this?
involved and
But yeah,
about being informed, really. Yeah.
inform yourself and care and show up.
Right.
Really, I think that's a duty of everybody as residents, you know, like if you want a better life, you work toward it. And having a better life involves being concerned about your community in some, I mean, even if it's like, I just care that people pick up the poop off my yard,
Right.
that minor, out to, I care that, you know, my beach isn't trashed, or I care that I have a seawall that's not gonna flood in 5 years, right? So, you know, I guess that also, like the concept of neighbor and the concept of neighborhood, you know, it can be super micro macro
Mhm.
depending on the individual, but you have to care about that because it affects you daily.
Yeah.
And so if I could do one thing, I would love to like get huge turnouts to elections, and I would love to just get more people aware of what's happening in town and doing what they can to make the world a little bit better in our little community.
Yeah, it's funny that you said about, like people caring because like even when I was out on the street trying to get like just questions to them.
Mhm.
I mean, they were like literally running or crossing the street and
Yeah,
it's just
people are
like
shy too.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, don't you want your voice heard? Like what do you think would you
Mm.
use a water taxi to help with the, the traffic situation? Would you use a lot of people from Boca come here for eating. A lot of people go down to Meisner, vice versa.
You found one lady who was very communicative.
Yeah.
I was like, she's what you need.
She
That
was
lady, she was
in-
going to grab the microphone and talk all night. I could tell she was over in Meisner, and I was like,
yeah,
oh, this
she was
woman,
in
that's,
Boca.
you gotta catch women like her, and they'll tell you their mind like in a second. Find a few New Yorkers on the street. Actually, they're probably the ones running. Sorry.
Oh.
But anyway.
Is there anything else you wanted to
No,
talk
ma'am.
about?
I think we had a great conversation.
Yeah,
I
do
hope
too.
everybody enjoyed it. And
Yeah. Very open,
I look
honest
forward to see what comes at
conversation.
the end.
Yeah, and again, thank you for coming, and we'll just keep doing what we're doing, right? And hopefully make a
plugging
difference.
away.
Yeah.
Keep plugging away. Good
Thanks
job,
so
Allie.
much. All right.
Yeah. Bye.
I really hoped you enjoyed that interview. We covered a lot of things, and I hope it gave you some insights into how people are feeling and thinking, and kind of some things that maybe need to change, maybe that are doing well, and so hopefully it was productive. Okay, so now we're going to move into science and technology real quick because I always want to make sure I have them in our episodes. And really quick, what I'm going to do for science and technology is kind of talking about some type of new building concepts that are coming out. These aren't far off in the future anymore. These are actually happening. So that's what makes it so interesting is this isn't kind of like, oh, somewhere off in the future, it's going to happen. These are being built. They're happening. They're real. They're not just drawings. So I wanted to share some with you. So the first drawing I'm going to show you is of a home that is built into a side of a hill. And these used to be kind of popular back in the early 70s. But what's different about this is what they're trying to do is not interrupt the land or the topography of the land. They're trying to build to the land and having low surface in order to be more productive and cost effective and so forth. So it's a very interesting design. They actually have a little pool there. So I thought that was interesting. Here's another view from the side, again, a little bit closer so you get an idea. And then this building is actually real and it's being built right now. And it's supposed to resemble a type of flower that they have. I think this is over in Taiwan, if I'm not mistaken. And it's supposed to be built with the technology now they're doing of the future and how buildings are going to start looking as far as architecture, because now technology has expanded so much that they can do things with buildings they've never been able to do before. So that's what's so interesting about this building is it really is science and technology in the future, but happening right now. Here's another view of the interior of the building. You can kind of see it's open in the middle, looking around. A lot of greenery, again, keeping greens in the buildings. This is another drawing that actually is going to happen. And this is basically what they're doing is they're surrounding the city with this long round tube around its tallest building. And this structure, what it's going to do inside, kind of goes back to what we've talked about in the prior episodes about the 15-minute city. So what it's going to do is it's actually going to have food, growing greens and things like that, vegetables and produce inside this tube. And then what it's going to do, I don't know if you can see, but right in the middle, down below the building in the center, you'll see right around the bottom rim is it's actually going to have transportation around the circle there, around the city. So it's kind of an interesting concept. This one is supposedly drawn and going to become into fruition. So the other two, though, are actually happening right now. So again, I just thought it was kind of an interesting drawing. Again, because of technology, they're able to build buildings of the future now. Okay, so this is kind of cute because I thought about, Boca del Rey, Highland Beach, and about how I know Boca on their strategic plan wants to incorporate more art. And I know Del Rey is very artsy, and Highland Beach is in the middle. and um, this is a little sewer cover that's in the street. And I just thought, this is kind of folksy and it's kind of cute. And it's about like a piggy bank. And I was like, this is the type of things that, just really make a difference. It's like the little details, right? So this isn't exorbitant as far as cost. And it's something cute that can be done. And I just thought, what a great idea that, I know Boca's really trying to be more artsy and and Del Rey. So here's a great example of something small that can be done, but again, it's the details that matter, right? I love this idea. So for Boca del Rey and Highland Beach, it's called a beach library. And so basically, on the beach entrances, there are these large cabinets that have beach toys in them for kids to play. And when they're done, they put them back in when they leave. And so other children can use them. So I'm like, what a great idea. Again, sharing and providing toys on the beach if you forgot one or didn't, or have too many or whatever. And they're for kids to play with. And I thought this is, again, a great idea that would fit in perfectly to all the local neighborhoods around here. I'm sure it would get a lot of use. So, again, let's think outside the box. There's some great ideas out there. Okay, so now for art. So, sometimes art is in nature, right? So here's another slant on art, right? We do different slants on art every week. So this art is actually tulip fields in the Netherlands that are coming into full bloom now in the spring. And look at the colors and the stripes and so forth. So it's just beautiful to look at. But again, it's just natural art. So I just thought this is a perfect picture for art, but natural art. And here, going in that theme, when I saw this, I said to myself, it basically looks like a rainbow colored unicorn seahorse. And the colors are just beautiful. So, again, nature is art, right? We all know that. But sometimes it's just nice to see something a little bit different that you haven't seen before. And I thought this is something to share also, similar to the tulip fields. And then I'm going to end today with a very reclusive type of jellyfish that is rarely ever seen. And a couple marine biologists or scientists just recently captured this on film. And for all of those people that love marine life and jellyfish and so forth, this is one that I'm sure you've never seen before. And so I thought, what a great way to end the program watching this video. And again, nature is art. So enjoy, and I'll see you next week.